Everyone's muted. Now you're unmuted.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, Dennison.
How's everything? Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. Sorry, my camera on my laptop's broken.
There you go.
Typical.
Hi everyone. How are you?
So you're full time on DAP Hero now? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, full time.
It's exciting. I saw you were trying to hire someone.
Yeah. I got one contractor full time. I got a contractor half time, and then another contractor half time. Trying to like make this happen, you know.
Cobble together a dream team.
Yeah, basically cobble together a dream team. I think it's happening. Really pumped. So a lot to do though. A lot. Like it's kind of crazy how much you have to do at the beginning.
Oh yeah, just like setting everything up. It's like,
Oh yeah.
Are you still working up at Crypto NYC?
Yeah, I'm still out of that space. It's sort of like, I don't know, I just love like I like working from home. I'm from home right now. But like there's just something special about like going to work, you know, and like having an office. And I'll be frank, like, you know, living in New York, there's something exciting about going to like Midtown and be like, yeah, I work in Midtown, you know what I mean? Like take the subway with all the other New Yorkers. Just last night, I was going home really late, and this guy sat down and he's just like, yo, you were riding the train this morning. I was just like, New York, yeah.
I'm with you on everything you said except for the Midtown part. Having worked there for like 3 years now.
You know, it's too easy for me to like, it's too easy in our like ecosystem just work from home and just be like, I work from bed. And then, you know, I don't know, there's just like, you know, there's a poke bowl place where I walk in and they know my name and they like know I like the spicy salmon, the like brown rice and like salad. And you wouldn't get that just at home, right? You just end up like talking to people that, you know, you wouldn't otherwise talk to. And I like that. It's worth it.
Nice. Well, we just started a WeWork down near Union Square, so if you ever want to come shake it up for a day and be a guest here, let us know.
Yeah, totally. Why did you guys choose WeWork?
Convenient. We're trying it out. We'll see if we're here long term, but it's a pretty central place for all of us for now.
Oh, it makes sense. And are you doing like an office space, or are you like in like a fleet of like desks out in the more open area? Like, do you have your own like
A very small office space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the grind. Well, our co-working space has a ton of open space. So if you're ever looking for something, you probably negotiate them pretty hard because there's a lot of offices.
Yeah, we'll see. We thought about it. Midtown though. We'll see.
Yeah, keep it in mind. Okay, so who is everybody? Are we all going to do like intros or?
yeah, we'll give like 1 more minute or 2 more minutes for people to roll in. It's normally how it works. People's last meetings go over a bit and then they hop like.
Oh yeah, I just pressed the arrow button that direction and there's a ton of people here. So I guess people probably aren't really interested in Midtown New York stuff. Hamza, where are you that you're in like an aquarium?
Yeah, nice one. I'm actually in this newly painted room. It's supposed to be my little brother's room. But yeah, I like the aquarium comparison, man. I mean, yeah, good one.
You can probably, if you're on Zoom, I think you can like put in a background.
Oh
No
yeah,
idea,
we do this often on our team, and Danny gets
Right.
frustrated because I'm in front of like a red smoke background, and I don't remember what I would use this.
Right? Like, oh, it even works on mine. We're a Bay Area startup. Yeah,
Nice one.
we have a nice office here.
Cool.
I should learn this trick. I mean, I don't see no point. Nothing in the UI tells me how to put a background. So
It's if you go up to Zoom US and go to preferences, like, or up on that side probably for you. Yeah, up here, preferences, and then virtual background.
Cool. All right, we can probably kick it off while Hamza figures out his virtual background to actually put fish there.
There you go.
Apologies in advance that I don't have a video. I've been without one on my laptop for the last week and a half, which is kind of a pain, but we'll be getting fixed soon. So I'll try to do the least amount of talking on the team because I'm sure you want to look at faces. So we just kick us off. I'll quickly run through the agenda that we have planned for the next hour. After the meeting's over, we'll follow up with a video recording and stuff. So if you have to hop, no big deal. And also throughout the meeting, Rachel will be posting links in the chat. So everything we talk about, we've probably published something about on Medium, or we have links to videos or whatever. So if you need to, or if you want to dig in any more about the things we're saying, that'll be in the chat. But cool. So for agenda today, where is it? All right, so we'll spend a bit of time, probably like 30-ish minutes on going through some updates of things we've worked on since last community call, like 3boxJS data sync, new version of Identity Wallet, how we integrated ENS and Hub, how we created a new plugin for editing profiles directly in other people's apps. We'll go through the architecture blog, and Rachel will talk about the dApp tutorial. And then we'll have presentations by Denison, dApp Hero, LivePeer, and Rarible. And then Rachel will recap some of the recent community events we've had and like hackathons we've sponsored. And then we'll have Q&A. So that sounds great. Then we can just kick it off. I think Oid can start with data sync.
All right. So I'm pretty excited about this. We have updated kind of one of kind of the main entry points to 3boxJS, which kind of separates the instantiation of 3box with the authentication. And let me share my screen. Cool. So basically, if you've used 3box before, we have something called OpenBox. This is still available, but now we've introduced like a newer interface that allows you to create an instance of 3box, and then at a later point you can authenticate. And when you call authenticate, you can pass in an array of spaces that you want to authenticate the user to. So yeah, this is basically that. And then you might ask, like, why do I want to do this? Well, the main reason that I think is super cool is that you can now open a thread directly on the box object. So you can start listening to a thread even though you're not authenticated. And then once you kind of want to post something in a thread, then you have to authenticate the user. So I'm gonna do a quick demo of how this works. I've updated, we have like an example dApp in the 3boxJS repo. So I'm just gonna load that. And what happens now is directly in the background in this app, 3box.create is called. So this thing, and this takes either an Ethereum provider or a 3ID provider that you can get from an identity wallet. So now that actually creates an instance of 3box that creates also an instance of IPFS and OrbitDB. What we can do now is we can join a thread directly. So I'm gonna join the community thread, and it's in the, when you open a thread without having authenticated, you need to specify the space the thread is in. So we're gonna do that in the test space, and we're gonna open a ghost thread. So for those who are not familiar, ghost threads are in-memory messaging, which means that the data is not persisted. And now we see that a lot of, for a different post from that was sync to our node. So basically, I have another browser running that kind of already posted stuff, and so these posts were synced from that other peer, and now we can try to post in this thread. So if I type something here and try to post that, it doesn't work. Basically, you can see here, cannot send message if not authenticated. So now I'm just going to auth 3box here. And what this does is that it authenticates the user. And I've already signed the message here in this session, I think, so I wouldn't have to do that. And now I'm going to open the test space, which this thread lived in. Now I also authenticated to the test space. So now let's see if we can post this. Yeah, so this test post worked. So yeah, this is basically that. Yeah, any questions on this kind of new way of like authenticating and like reading from threads? And also, you will be able to like get updates in the thread. So let me actually do this. If I reload this again and I do, so now I'm not authenticated to the 3box because I haven't clicked this button. So I open this again, and once the messages load from the other peers, let's see. What I want to demo here is basically, even if you're not authenticated to this thread, you will still receive updates. So now we got all of the posts, and I'm just going to go to my other browser window here. Let's see, 3box demo, and post. So now, even though I'm not authenticated here, I still get all of the updates. And this is working completely peer-to-peer with IPFS. So I think that's kind of cool. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, the front-end developer at 3box here. One of the benefits you'll see in especially in Ghost Chat, we have chat box in the 3box.io hub. And one of the benefits of this improvement is that you don't have to join the chat before seeing the messages appear. And so that update is going to be reflected in the chat box soon.
Cool. Yeah, that's basically this updated syncing. We are also working on some improvements to our kind of data pinning service that will make like general data sync for data storage faster as well. So we're pretty excited about that also, but that's, and we hope to have that released beginning of next week. But that will basically be a change that will, in our backends or in the node backends, that should just work faster for everyone. Yeah.
All right, Owen. Next one, the new identity wallet.
Cool. So yeah, this is a really small update. We have been working on something we call confidential threads for a while. And we just released a new version of Identity Wallet that has support for asymmetric encryption. And that also works through this 380 provider. And we also, this will tie in neatly to the 3box.js SDK as well and we basically have APIs to do asymmetric encryption between users. That's it.
And it's not documented and released really yet. Like it is released, but it's not productized in the API completely yet. And so when we have confidential threads, then it will like make more sense as to how it's used for, like DMs or group chats or, like private groups messaging. But yes, it works now and you can encrypt data to another ID, but it will make more sense in the context of like being wrapped in the Threads API.
Yeah, exactly. So only if you have like urgent asymmetric encryption needs, you can ask in our Discord.
Seems like there's a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Yeah. So it can be used in this confidential threads feature that we're working on. But it can be used more general to build other stuff as well. But it's not like an API that we have like documented at this point. But I think the confidential threads is going to be like a really simple API, basically the same as the current threads API, but all messages will be encrypted.
And like another use case is sharing data between people in a group. So without sort of like in a non-interactive way. So you can like post messages or photos or whatever to a thread and people in that thread can read it. So it's a way to privately share data without needing the user to like authenticate to a front end. So you can share data between different users rather than just between a user and an app. Cool. All right, that was quick. And we'll have like a whole Medium article and stuff once we release confidential threads about this. But in the meantime, you just have to take our word for it. All right, Kenzo, you want to share the ENS hub update?
Yep. So as you'll find at 3box.io, we have already implemented a way of searching for profiles using Ethereum address. But over the past sprint, we added support for ENS. ENS is kind of a great UX improvement to the ecosystem, making hex addresses much more human-friendly, human-readable. And as one of our core tenants to 3box, we decided this was a great thing to integrate into Hub. So basically, any place you would see an Ethereum address, we've replaced with an ENS name. We're doing this by first doing a reverse lookup using the Ethers library to find a canonical ENS name, which you'll have to set explicitly. If that hasn't been set, then we use the Graph API to look up the different ENS names that are associated to your Ethereum address and using the first one. So maybe my profile isn't the best to show off here because I don't have an ENS name. I'll get that soon, but we'll still be able to see the search functionality working here. So Michael has the msena.eth ENS name, and that we've looked up the owner of this ENS name, ties it back to Michael's Ethereum address, and it looks up his profile. We also have the 3box one, which right now is associated to OID, I believe. And what, 3ID, I believe, is another one. Yeah, so it'll show up in your activity, in your wall where other people have interacted. We could go to—
Kenzo, why don't you click my profile?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So as you see here, I don't have ENS name, but Michael does. And so instead of showing his Ethereum address, we're showing his ENS name. Should be the same as—
Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see I sent like Danny and Joel yeah, there you go. 3.
It's showing here. Yeah, that's it for the ENS story.
Cool. Yeah, and so I think in the future, another improvement we want to make is we'll eventually let people create 3box ENS names, like right in the app. That was like that was more work, and so first step was just showing them Second step will be letting people register new ones. But yeah, so we had some questions from the community when we released it, like, how do I set a canonical name, or like, how do I get an ENS name? It's like, right now, just go to your ENS domain registrar and you can set all those things. But yeah, in the future, hopefully we can take care of some of that stuff in the UI. Dennison, I see you have a question here. What do you got?
Yeah, so basically something I was wondering, and something that we've been thinking about a little bit, is what is the best practice of like communicating to users that what they're looking at is an ENS domain name, a valid one. I mean, I guess like a month or two ago, that happened with George from LimeChain, where like he had sent, you know, his money to his ENS name, and actually the resolver was totally messed up, and you know, he lost the funds. So that isn't related to this, but I've been wondering, like, how do users really properly understand what they're looking at as like a valid ENS name versus like just text versus, right? Like, is there, it's kind of a vague question, but how are we going to like train users to understand what they're looking at and know that they can like trust that, right? For example, if you were on a different network already that, you know, is supporting ENS names, would that then be valid, right? Like if your ENS name is on mainnet, but oops, you know, you're on, I don't know, some sort of scale side chain or on XDAI and you didn't realize it, what sort of like UI steps should we be thinking about to not create problems for the users?
Yeah, those are good questions, and something that we really don't encounter particularly or like in the same way that most like financial apps do. But yeah, I mean, we'd be happy to contribute to that discussion. We don't like allow sending of funds through our platform, and so generally, like if a user's going to their wallet or somewhere else where they can send funds, then it's sort of up to that wallet to handle like the network to make sure that you're sending on mainnet or a testnet or a sidechain. So we basically just resolve and display. But if there's like an emerging like UI pattern for how to indicate it's an ENS name, that would be awesome. Like I'm imagining like, as Threebox can now support multiple addresses associated to the same Threebox account, as we expand that beyond just multiple Ethereum addresses to multiple different blockchain addresses, like there may be registrars on other blockchain networks that we also have to sort of pull in. And so then it gets increasingly complicated. I hope that someone creates like an SDK to just like help people resolve these things and like throw errors or like do whatever. But yeah, like we haven't really dug too deep into that because we're more focused on like the SDKs and the network and stuff. Like we kind of create this hub app as our way to dog food all of our products and give people like an easy way to use the stuff. But you know, like we care more about like the databases and stuff like that. So if anyone creates these things, we're happy to just like drop them in. That answer your question? So no, I don't think anyone's really solved this in a good way yet.
Yeah, that gets me.
Cool, and I see another question. How does this compare to status? Is that a question particularly around the ENS names, Threebox generally? Mac1, you there? Around the general approach. Yeah, I guess we could talk about that quickly. So status, I think the only real place where these, where we get a lot of questions between Threebox and status is around messaging. And so like status has built, I guess, like a messaging protocol, but it seems like it's not been that widely adopted. Just in general, like or Threebox is a more generalized way of storing data in a interoperable, user-centric, peer-to-peer way. And we have APIs for messaging. And so it's sort of just like a really general way to build apps And if you're building an app, like one of the things that we've heard a lot of people want is messaging. So we use OrbitDB feed stores. And yeah, I mean, they do profiles and messaging, but they're sort of, the profiles are status profiles. They're not like open, like other apps can't leverage that data and information in the same way. So with our system, it's like an open way to store all sorts of data, whether it's profiles, messages, storage, that isn't trapped inside of a specific browser, but is rather interoperable between all sorts of applications. I think maybe like as some of the community integrations chat later, like Denison and others, then I think it might become more clear as to how they're just like pulling in 3Box information to more rapidly build apps. Cool. And Status is building another messaging protocol, VAC P2P or something like that, or doing research on it. You know, we're happy to consider adding support for some of these things in the future, but nothing was really ready and viable. And so we just used what we had. Cool.
You broke up there, Michael.
Cool. Edit profile.
Yeah, so since our last community call, we've been churning out different plugins for people to put into their React apps, one of which being the edit profile component. So this component is, as it says in the repo, is an easy way to add user profiles to your app. And we provide UI and logic to hit our profiles in Spaces API in this easy to use component. So kind of with this React component, we're kind of introducing a paradigm where dApps can either use a generalized 3-box profile or let users save data to what we're calling a space profile. So the data here in this top half is data that you're getting from the data you input, say in our hub, 3box.io. But below is custom fields provided by the dApp that saves user data to their space profile. So this takes this general data. You can either choose to save to your app profile. So you can save, say you want to use a different name for this specific decentralized application and have a new description that is maybe more relevant to that decentralized application. And these can all be customized, and you can set to use your app profile as opposed to your 3-box profile when you're using the dApp that this is integrated with. We can go to, let's see how it's implemented. The required props.
Can you zoom in a bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think there are only three required props that you need to pass to the edit profile component. First, you need to have open box, then you need to have open space, and maybe this might change with the new way of authing spaces OED, but for now, this is how it works. Then you'll create custom fields if you so choose to have them. Again, this is the bottom half of, this is the non-basic input fields. So you provide a key to which it's saved to. Field is how it's going to read in the interface. You can pick one of 3 different input types, drop down, text, or text area. And with the drop down, you provide the different options that someone can choose from. And then you pass this custom fields prop to the edit profile component, and then it renders like so. Now we are open to accommodating more input types if there's demand from the community. But for now, we provide 3 different input types. And you can save this and then save it, and then this will, will render throughout the application if the developer is pulling from this.
And a little clarity on the 3-box profile versus app profile. So sort of by default, we're sort of deferring to the 3-box profile. So if a user already has one created in 3-box or elsewhere with this plugin, or in another app that also saves the 3-box, it will show up. The user's profile will automatically show up, but there's a lot of instances where maybe it's like a DAO or Rarible, and I want to show that like I'm like M Senna Nifty or something instead of like Michael Senna, and maybe I want like more of a Mimi profile picture rather than like my face, and so this just allows like greater customization in sort of the application context, while still leveraging sort of the core capabilities of 3-box and like giving users convenience by default. But if they want, whether it's, more privacy or more contextual specificity, they can do that if they want.
Yep. Yeah, that's it for the edit profile component. Are there any questions? Oh, let's see.
Yeah, some questions coming in.
Set these, yes. So another DApp would implement this component and set, sorry, it would one of the necessary props is the space name that decentralized application uses. And so that would be specific to their DApp. And so when you use a DApp, an app profile, that is using the space that is unique to their application.
And yeah, Dennison, so you can do it without the component. Like you can always, 3-box Hub possesses no specific capabilities to the 3-box network. And so if you're building an app, you can either, if you authenticate the user or the user authenticates your app rather to their 3-box profile store or your app specific space, then your app can always save data and update data. So if a user logs into your app, you can update and edit their 3-box profile right there. If they don't have a 3-box profile, you can just like create one for them, or you can always sort of like update the spaces that your app has access to. So this component just sort of like makes that easier, because what we had noticed is a lot of apps were using 3-box to get profile information to populate their UI, but they weren't saving profile information back, because like a lot of them were building demo apps or hackathon apps, and it was like that's a lot more work in the UI and like integrating 3box.js to do. And so they were just like kicking people back to 3-box Hub to update their profiles, and then like would show it updated in their app. And so this just like improves the UX of apps by keeping people like in your app, and now you can just like update profile directly in there. But yeah, no specific capabilities. And yeah, so Alex, I see you have a question. How do I create a new DApp profile? So in this component, like a DApp profile is really just profile information stored in that app's space. So like if it's DApp Hero might have a space, and if DApp Hero provides the UI interface to save an image and a name to that space, then that becomes your DApp profile. So as a user, like you can't arbitrarily go around, I guess you could if you wanted to code it yourself, but sort of like there would be no interface to create that DApp profile. Like if you wanted to, in the command line or by coding it, you could just like open an app space and save information to it, and then it can be pulled, but it sort of would be more reasonable to have an interface to do that. So here, like if let's say Rarible integrated the component, just by sort of going to app profile instead of 3box profile, it will just automatically start saving that information to that app space. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's just like saving in that database.
Something though I wondered is, so the app profile is protected from other apps overwriting the data.
Yeah, I mean, if the user gives another app, like authenticates another app to interact with your database, then that app can technically, as of right now, overwrite that data. We're in the process of changing something, so that's not going to be true. But if a user authenticates an app to a space, then that app can perform operations on that space and like updates. And so it's like there is some possibility of that happening, but it's more likely that instead of like updating, other apps might read your information and then like redisplay it. So if you're a DAO and you go to like, you have a DAO profile for maybe like DAO Stack or something, Alchemy, and you go to a different DAO provider, they might just like try to read your DAO profile instead of your basic 3box profile.
Right.
But,
And the user authentication piece, like when the user gives permission for that to happen, is that like really explicit, or is it sort of like a one-off where you say, yeah, you can edit my space or edit my other spaces? Like, I'm just wondering if you could sort of visit like a sort of malicious site that would maybe just like somehow trick you into giving permission and then just sort of like inconvenience you by wiping out all your profile information.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, that happens with the wallet signature request, and we use plain text, so we use the personal sign method, so it's like not like ciphertext, and it says like allow this app to read and update your profile information or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, so in the future, like in the not too distant future, I think we're going to separate read and write access. So you could only like give read access to another app, and it wouldn't be able to just like update and like wipe your database.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as of right now, like there is some limitations. Like we don't have complete selective disclosure. Like you can't only give certain specific pieces of private information. It's sort of like an all or nothing permissions model for each database. And you have to perform a signature for each specific database they access. So each space. So if you have like DApp Hero 1, DApp Hero 2, DApp Hero 3, like I would need to sign 3 messages, like one for each for that app to interact with them.
Maybe something that could be interesting to consider is for the data that gets saved on the app profile, because I like the idea of app profiles very much, but right now we can't trust the app profile data, right? So if I had a social network and you were who you were on the 3box app profile space, right? I couldn't actually use your name that comes in from your profile because you could spoof anyone else just by altering your own. Maybe there's like a way to create like maybe a convenience function where the DApp itself, maybe on the back end, signs this data so that in the future when it reads it back, it can sort of like verify that like, yeah, this app actually did create that data that's been saved here. Because it seems like otherwise maybe, it would be difficult to, you could show this data to the user themselves because it's them, but you wouldn't be able to like use this data to show anyone else because you couldn't like, as a DApp, you couldn't really verify that that was true.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like the difference between like sort of, basic non-specific profile information. Like it doesn't really matter what people say if it doesn't matter their verified identity. So like you can call yourself whatever you want and it just like identifies you on the app to others. But yeah, this is something we just chatted with Gitcoin about. Basically what you're talking about requires verified credentials. So like each bit of data is signed by the issuer.
Mm-hmm.
And that would require the issuer to run a backend.
Right.
Right. And so now you get into the thing of like, okay, now can it be a pure DApp if the DApp is signing data because you need to run a server to sign information. And so there is like some limitations on that, but like, again, I think when we move to, we're working on a bunch of things that will sort of have more guarantees around that database only being able to be written to by the app that sort of sponsored that database. And so then you'll have, it's like a middle ground between everything being signed and everything being basically open and unsigned. And so you will have some more trust without needing to run a backend.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. All right. So there's a bunch of questions. I know we got hung up here a little bit, but yeah. So business profiles on 3box. You basically, there's to us like no real difference. We don't have a UI for business profiles, but if your business wanted to create a 3box profile, like the manager or owner or multi-sig or contract identified by your business, could be, could have a profile. It's sort of like a DAO profile. Like, sure, you can like the whoever is elected by the DAO to manage the DAO's profile can create it, and then you can link that profile to the DAO contract. And so like technically you can do it, but we don't have UI to like make that as convenient as user profiles. Default space, yeah, 3box profile. So it's sort of just the basic 3box information. And then one last question. Is the data in the user's profile considered VCs or signed by the user? Yeah, good question. So every bit of data stored in 3box is signed by the user's key, client side. So like that's how you know that the data in a 3box is like authorized by the user and belongs to the user. But they're not strict verifiable credentials signed by the user. We just do signed data. And like sort of what Dennison was talking about is an app can also, if they wanted to, like sign the data on their server and then send it to the client. And then the user also signs it to say like, yes, I'm authorizing this data to be stored in my 3box. And then you have a dual signature. But yeah, more signed data than VCs as of right now, but you could store VCs in 3box. It's like not one or the other. The user always signs it to know that this is a valid update. And the user can also perform encryption client side on it.
Yeah, and to add to that, the user can also create VCs. Like that's not what it usually does when adding data, but you can use 3box to create a VC and send that to someone else. So you can have like peer-to-peer verifiable credentials, for example.
Yeah, cool. All right. So quickly, I'll just talk about the architecture blog. In case you really want to know, like everything we just talked about was kind of like getting towards some of this information. Rachel, can you drop the link in the chat? But I'll share my screen really quickly. I think I have it pulled up. Actually, let me just make sure that it's on the right browser tab. Cool. All right. So here is.
I think it might be on a different tab.
Yeah, it wasn't on any tab. So here, I won't go into detail, but if you really want to know how 3box works, we wrote a really long article which talks about all like the main components. And there's really like 4 pieces. So wallets to do authentication and to handle like account keys. Then we have 3ID, which sort of is an abstraction on top of all of these account keys. So it maps one or many different account keys to a DID. And then from that DID, we generate the signing and asymmetric and symmetric encryption keys that are actually used to interact with your 3box and all your databases. And so no matter which key or wallet you're using, you can always control the same data, which makes it interoperable across wallets and blockchains and different networks. And those keys control data stored in OrbitDB instances, and underneath the hood, it uses IPFS. And so here's just like quickly how one looks. If there's an Ethereum key, it's mapped to a root store, which is an OrbitDB feed store. And in that, we store just links to your Ethereum keys and also links to your databases. And so, there's like your profile store, which is a key value store. That's your general $3 profile. And then all your other key value stores, which are your space databases. So where your app specific profile would live or your other app data. And in spaces like Owen showed earlier, you can store threads also, and threads can be shared between multiple users as we're showing here. So if there's space 2, let's say this is Rarible, and this is also then therefore Rarible, users of Rarible can communicate in a single thread, even though those threads, the references are stored in their own spaces. This is a simplified model. If you care to learn more about that, I would urge you to check out the blog post.
Cool. I'll just quickly show the next thing on the agenda, which is this tutorial that I wrote, building a distributed app store. This is kind of something I did just to learn about 3box when I joined, and thought it would be good to share and write down in the form of a tutorial. This is the demo app. I'll share both of these links in the chat in a minute. Basically, it's just it's a list of like applications. You can add one. These are all stored. All of these applications are stored in a thread. Also making quite a bit of use of plugins. We've got the comments plugin here, so we can just like say a message and leave one there. And then also making use of our new friend, the profile edit component. And also you can, just add an application. But yeah, it's all broken down here in terms of like setting up, connecting with Web3. This is the tech stack that we're using. We're obviously like a React app, Vuebox.js and Profile Hover, Profile Edit plugins as well. So yeah, good place to start if you just want to kind of have a feel for how to kind of stitch together a basic application on 3box. Yeah, cool. That's all from me. I'll share these. I think we're going to jump over into some of the demos now from the community. So I don't know if you want to kick this off, Dennison, and show us what you've been building with Dapp Hero.
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. You're still sharing.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm going to do this quickly because I do have another call. It'll be a little underwhelming because we have been building a lot. Let me open that right now. So I'm going to, if you've already seen the videos that I've shared before, then this won't seem new in any way or radical. But it sort of like shows the basic functionality that we've been working on, and we're now in the process of rebuilding everything, which is exciting and a ton of work. And then, now we've already sort of matched and eclipsed the proof of concept that I had originally built over Thanksgiving weekend. So we've rebuilt it in TypeScript, and we're sort of like going full speed ahead, trying to figure everything out, because the goal is to launch at ETH Denver, at least the MVP. So yeah, give me a little bit of, go easy on me. Let me zoom in a bit. But basically the idea is that Dapp Hero is allowing designers and builders to leverage the tools that they already know to be able to build dApps, or at least connect to the blockchain or Ethereum and stuff like that. Because, when we talk about dApps, there's a real difference. If you're building on top of Webflow already, then, it's already not a dApp because you're building on top of Webflow. But there's a lot of builders out there who do want to be able to access dApp technology and these new technologies like 3box, but currently it's just too difficult for them because that's not the sort of mindset that they're in. So to just give you a really quick demo with what we're doing when working with Webflow, right? So Webflow is this really great tool that allows you to design websites. A lot of large companies use it. It's very impressive. It's really well built. Maybe I'll put a little bit more here for you to see. Oops, sorry, that's too much zoom. Basically allows you to do really easy design. I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Webflow, but it allows you to just build out kind of amazing stuff, just drag and drop style. You could just building rich text. It's really something that where you can, there's sort of like no limit to what you can build, right? And then how you style it and how you like build it all out. So what we've done is we've created what DApp Hero is DApp Hero is basically a tool that it works as a plugin for Webflow, but it'll also work for Squarespace, you know, in the future Wix, anything like Shopify, any of these type of no-code platforms. The tool is really aimed at supporting no-code builders, right? The idea is like, how can we abstract the data that comes in from distributed technologies and just make it really easily accessible? So the sort of generalized process that you would do here is that you would build out your app as you normally would, and you would have your sort of like stock data, like how you would design it. So in this case, we have a button, which will be our enable MetaMask button. And then we have an image here that'll become our profile image. We have our name, website, address, these type of things to just basically show how it will work. And the idea is that all you have to do here is you just have to label each of your element to say what it's going to be, like what you want there, right? So in this case, it's Connect MetaMask. This is your Web3 enable button. This is going to be your name. This is coming in from 3box. That would be your name. This would be your address. This would be Web3 address, et cetera, et cetera. So that is sort of like how you sort of identify elements. And this is something that designers are really familiar with already, right? This is using something that people who build websites but don't necessarily do front-end development, they are aware of this. They know how to use this. One of the things that I found when I was doing sort of just canvassing with designers to see what were their pain points at hackathons and building on Web3, and it was twofold. Number one, for designers, professional designers especially, they talked about the experience of how when they went to some sort of technology that they wanted to use, there's a quick start that's really easy, and you know, the top of the quick start says, okay, you know, just install this on your command line. And as a professional designer, their response was, where's the command line, right? What's a command line? So already there, it was, okay, you know, what we think of as easy is sometimes just light years ahead of like, or in a different direction than what we think other members of the community need to work with, right? And it's something that's important to consider that when you are a professional designer or professional UX person, right, like being really good at what you do means sometimes that you're not going to be able to have this like visibility over information that we sort of accept as normal when we're building dApps. So that's what we're trying to abstract away. So to sort of show you this, the process here with Webflow means that, okay, you just name the ID of the element here. You click publish, which is the typical Webflow thing that you would do, and you go see the site. And then when you click on enable MetaMask, you don't see the MetaMask notification coming up because it's in another window, but I click it, and then it, so I've zoomed in too much, sorry. And then it's instantly enabled as a Web3 dApp here, right? You have your profile image coming in through 3box, your profile information, you have your address. Here's a sort of demo of how we can actually build in other things like components from Rimble. This is a Rimble component. Of course, we could show it without that. You have your, you know, your other sort of information. So what we're building is we now have support also for contracts, which is something we had support for before, but isn't sort of in this demo right now, where we have support for arbitrary contracts, where you can just tell the DApp Hero engine, okay, this is my contract, and then you can label all your input fields for any forms to say, hey, this is where you're going to transfer in, you know, this is how much Ether I want to send. This is the button that actually triggers that. These are the elements that get updated on confirmations. So it becomes a really, you know, sort of copy paste, click, point and click type of experience for building out a dApp, but there's no coding required here, right? So it's really like simplified experience. Certainly it doesn't give you necessarily that sort of like full control that you might want if you were actually building your front end using React, something like that directly. But the speed at which you can get up and running and make something is really kind of unparalleled. And in Webflow, you still have a lot of ability to go in later using jQuery, for example, to do more complicated functionality here. But the idea for Dap Hero is that, okay, we are going to be that like entrance door for people who are just arriving in the ecosystem, and they want to use 3Box profiles, they want to use ENS, they want to use blockchain, but they don't know how these things work. I mean, some of the feedback we've had from front-end engineers who are experienced front-end engineers at hackathons is that even Web3 itself is kind of a tricky, complicated beast for them. So for them to be able, sorry, you're gonna hear my sirens because this is New York City. Oh, you know. So even for front-end developers, Dap Hero will work in a React project, and that just dramatically simplifies your time to like getting to the end of the hackathon with something that looks great and that's usable, or getting something that works that then you can pass off to real developers to really flesh out. So that's the idea. I saw there were some comments or questions, but I cannot for the life of me find them. Maybe I have to stop sharing.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like please share some links to everything you're working on in the chat box. Really impressive stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, any questions? Okay, no, good.
Maybe we should just to be mindful of time. I know we've got Adam from Life here as well, also on the call, and he was going to give a quick demo of the integration that they recently done. Just checking that you're still
Yep.
online.
Yeah, happy to share that now. Definitely.
Oh, awesome.
All right. I'll share my screen. Great. Okay, I'm using Brave and it's telling me I need to restart my browser. Just give me 2 seconds.
Maybe if you want a little bit more time, I think we also had a demo from Rarible as well. So maybe Rarible want to just jump in and do a quick demo whilst Adam reboots his browser.
Oh yeah, I forgot to unmute myself. Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a product manager at Rarible. Yeah, so let me share my screen real quick. Yep, here is our project. So, as you can tell from the screen, we are, first of all, we are live on mainnet. So I'm happy to present something that uses 3Box in a live area. So we are collectible issuings and marketplace platform. So basically, we want our users to be able to create collectibles with no code. So right now, collectibles, there are a lot of experimentation in the space, and some games uses collectible functionality to allow their people to do something, to own a land or to have an in-game asset or something like that. But basically, for me, collectible is a thing that collectible is a standard that allows people to infuse some rights on blockchain. So basically, collectible means that you own something on blockchain. And what we are trying to do is to allow our users to create their own rights on blockchain. So far, okay, let me show you how that works. So far, we've been successful with enabling users to create art, because it's like the first thing that you can put easily with no code. It's just a picture and some explanation of what's going on there. And basically, we've been quite successful with attracting artists that do that. And here comes the 3Box integration, because basically when you're selling art, it's not about the picture itself, but it's about the name behind the picture, like who created it. And for us, it would be complete pain to support a lot of this like social social features without help. Like it's just too much focus. It would take too much focus of us, and that's why we used the Treebox integration. But at first we had like avatar and name support from our own project. So we've previously, before we came to Treebox, we've done it by ourselves, and that's why now we are using both of them. For me as a product manager and the person who's like responsible for the UX integrity, that was one of the pain points, because we needed to convert our users to start Treebox accounts instead of what they had previously. And so far, we just overriding user data if he has something on Treebox. So for example, this one particular artist has his Treebox profile set up. We can see that because he has this micro picture. Okay, and it looks like that. So when I hover on my profile, I can see this pop over. I can see there is a question maybe in the chat. Let me check it.
I just shared a link to the site.
Oh, okay, thanks. So yeah, it's pretty simple. So I can check my profile. I can view it on Treebox. We are kicking people back to the Treebox where they can edit their profile, and yeah, and we just take it. But right now we are working on more integration, because basically we are working on the page of the specific author. For example, here is my page, and me as an author. I want for the people who come to my page to be able to see like my bio, my Twitter profile, my social network addresses, like maybe my website. And here comes like the power of this integration, because otherwise it would be too much pain for us to create like even the basic versions of that functionality. Like we need to allow people to edit some links, to add the picture, to add the background. Like would be just too much. I mean, this is this fascinating moment when making something like, it is easier for us to use Treebox here. It would be easier, and like we receive this distributed, decentralized identity as a bonus to be just to the more easier integration. Sorry about the wording. No, my thought is like how there is this conception in the space that users don't want to be just decentralized. They want to have something more useful and decentralized at the same time. And that's what we have from Treebox as developers. So we have something more useful for us as developers and decentralized, and like at the same time. And that makes it really great. Cool. Yeah. So let me just show you one screen of how the collectibles is created. And so you can understand that it's really simple. Basically, that's just it for now. You can choose the picture, choose a collection, or create your own collection. Collection is like CryptoKitties, and the token is the kitty itself. Yeah, you can set up additional properties and just put it instantly on sale. Yeah, it's really simple. And what we are working on right now is to be able to infuse more value into those created NFTs for the people, for the users who create them. For example, the next feature would be unlockable NFTs. And that's the type of NFT that you can log some just like some information inside that will be available for the person who purchased it after the purchase. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We try to empower our users with the ability to create some ownership on blockchain, and like the more ownership we can give them, the better we are. Oh yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. It's pretty awesome stuff, and the site is looking really slick. So yeah, see.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. So I'm just going to share my screen now.
Yeah, Alex, this is awesome. It's super easy.
Cool. So I know we've overrun a little bit, but we had just a section just to go over some of the events that we've done, hackathons that we've done, and also events that are coming up. So the first thing is just before Christmas, we took part in the Global Communities Hackathon on Gitcoin, which was pretty awesome. We had some really good submissions, some very quality work, so it was great to be part of that. We had 3 bounties up there, and I'll share a link to this in a minute. 3 bounties that we had was a chat box bounty, which was adding likes to the chat box functionality. And then also one for comments, so adding upvotes, emoji reactions, and then replies to comments. So kind of really adding a lot more interactivity and kind of Web 2-ness to the comment bounty. And then finally, we had a Gitcoin integration bounty, which was integrating with Gitcoin to use a 3box to back up user profiles. And yeah, we had some really good submissions for all of those. I will share the link and you can check out each of the winners for there. I've actually got I think the chat box one is here. And I'll just write another message and you can see, you can give it a like there. So pretty cool, pretty nifty. So that was the first hackathon we're a part of. We also took part in the Erasure Hackathon, and myself and Michael, we ran a webinar there, just kind of giving an intro to 3box. And off the back of that, we had a couple of submissions, React components that were also using Erasure, and another submission that was using 3box to back up Erasure data. So really nice to see those people building on top of 3box and getting some traction from that hackathon. Just coming up, we've got a couple of events. First of all, we're going to be at FOSDEM. We've got a stand there. It's a very big open source conference over in Belgium. So it's going to be really cool to just chat to all the open source community over there. And then finally, as I think you may know, we are going to be taking part in ETH Denver. So we are one of the sponsors there. We're going to be running some bounties, workshops. We'll be talking at quite a few events over there as well. So please stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see quite a few of you over there. So yeah, I think that's it for the events really. Don't know if we want to open up some time just if there's any more questions that we weren't able to cover in the section earlier, come through on the chat.
Yeah, apologies for running over. I know it's not great practice, but if there's any questions that are urgent, we can say in a few minutes and answer them. If not, always please feel free to join and ask in our Discord if you're still here. So here's the link. There should be a dot in there, sorry. And you can ask there. Thanks for joining, guys. Appreciate all the participation and your time. And we'll follow up with a recording of this in case there's anything else you want to see or share.
Cool. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Yeah, thanks for joining, Stephen.
Cheers.
See you, Alex. Bye.
Bye.